for adults sometimes to sit down. And the interesting thing there is sometimes you're teaching adults that their kids actually enjoy doing this, and they can go home and replicate it and invite them to do that. Another project that I've been involved in is, my belief is that makerspaces are spreading everywhere, but the hardest place to get them is into schools. It's the hardest culture to change, and it's the hardest place to innovate. I had a DARPA grant to do making into high schools, and we worked with, we got to a group of pilot schools in the Bay Area in San Francisco, Lighthouse Community Charter. And, I can't tell you, as much as you think making is something that's wonderful to you, but to see kids that have never, I don't know what Make is or Maker Faire, but to sit down and give the opportunity in a setting to make something and learn how to do something and be let go enough to fail and try something. It's remarkable to see the transformation in their lives. And another fellow here, Casey Shea, raise your hand, Casey. You should talk to him. He's a teacher at Annalee High School, and we set up a makerspace in our office, and he brought about 30 students up last year we just called it Project Make. We just invite them to make stuff, and we'll get stuff in there. Casey's a math teacher, but he kind of knew that this is something that kids would enjoy. And what's really nice is after doing a year in our office, he was able to get the shop class restored. It used to be, it had been mothballed, and all the equipment had been moved into closets and out of it, and he was able to get that back in operation. And it's a really great space, and it's something that students, get very little opportunity to actually use tools and materials and explore. This is something that some of you might want to actually replicate here. One of our staff kind of gave all these schools sticky notes that had kind of a what was important to you in terms of getting your space up and going. And they just sort of said, here's our priorities. But the interesting, like someone's designing the space, safety is kind of like in the middle, which is kind of funny. Classroom management down at the bottom, excellent, right? But I thought this connecting to other teachers was the number one. And just that there's a community out there doing this is the most meaningful accelerant to getting makerspaces out there. And this community is not just teachers, it's you and everybody else in the community that's making. So I think what we were trying to do with the mentor program was to look at low-cost options for creating makerspaces. Fab Labs are great, but they're expensive. We wanted to say you could start with simple tools, simple materials. You can put the stuff on a cart and wheel around like an AV cart if you have to. But just get it going, start it. What we're really about is not the tools, but self-directed learning, that you can figure out how to do stuff. And collaboration through sharing projects and finding things out on the internet. You say, that's cool, I want to make it. Say, do it. So one of the things I want to leave you with a little bit is, I think if we have a joint project, I'm going to let you guys figure out how to build up spaces and go to the details. People like Guy will give you his designs. I think something we could work on together is to improve training. The quality of instruction, the quality of instructors, the quality of materials, the frequency and consistency of classes. But if there's one area that I think we should start in, I'll pitch it, it's safety. We should have a standard safety practices across what I'd call our industry, our makerspaces. We don't need to reinvent that. We should actually agree on it, just as other industries do. And we should practice that and monitor and report on it. It's going to pay dividends to us because it'll help with, lower our insurance. And more importantly, it will help our community be able to do more. Certainly as I look at schools, liability and risk are some of the things that come up here. And yet, the actually incidences of injury are fairly low. But there sometimes just has to be one high-profile one to kind of turn people off on this. So, but again, whether this is Arduino or 3D printing, this is kind of what we try to do through the magazine, but I think we can all do more. It's almost like a hybrid model between training, that you might get some of it online, but you need to be with other people and see projects, and there are people here often to do that. We just did a survey of readers, not just readers, but makers through our sites. And it's such the blue is people that have already taken an online class or course. They've taken webinars, face-to-face courses. So the community's already doing this. They're used to doing this, and I think we have to figure out how to help them. So there's two things I hope will change about what we're doing over time here. One is that what happens in hackerspaces stays in hackerspaces. I want it to get out to the world. I want all of you who are creating and inventing and doing projects to find a way to put that up on Twitter or somewhere to let other people know what you're doing. Because you're not alone, and you shouldn't be. It's a safety rule, right? But it's surprising me. When I visit those spaces like Dallas, I walk through and I think, how come I didn't know about that? Why don't I know what you're doing? And it's not just me, but just the community. And again, I would love to see Make have a role in that. The second thing I would like to change, that the perception that this is a guy thing or a geek thing, or a white guy thing. Our future is by incorporating, the whole community, not just a portion of it. And I think we will find that maker spaces will take off in certain areas. In other areas, we're going to have to figure out how do they happen. My friend Jeff Sturgis in Detroit has a maker space in the basement of a church. And this is an African American community. But the most important thing is, he said, the church already has the community. I just had to provide, tools and materials. Every Sunday I set up and we do things, in the basement, and we have kids learning how to do this. And about 2 years ago for Detroit Maker Fair, we did a thing in the farmer's market, and some of his kids came out. This Raven, who's a wonderful, about an 8-year-old girl, was teaching adults how to solder in the farmer's market. It was just a wonderful thing. She had a tip jar out there, and she and her friends made $100 doing soldering. So, but if we can, this has to do a bit with the mainstream, and I'm happy that I think events like Maker Fair, I see have wide appeal, and every year they're getting more and more people of all possibilities there. So I would like to see maker spaces help in that regard. And it may be that it's not about getting people to your makerspace. It might be taking some of the people who use your makerspace to go out into those other communities and help share what you do. And there are schools and museums and other places that need that kind of mentorship help. They can get the kids, but they don't have the expertise. So there's lots of ways I think we can make this happen. It's an important thing for us to do, and I'm really glad to hear we have great international representation here, because we also don't think this is an American thing either. This is something that people are looking at. We have Amika here who does Maker Fair Africa, and he's told me tonight he's here because, in Lagos and other places they're trying to create spaces. They see the value of this, and that's really important. So I would just like to wish you all well as makers of spaces and makers of makers. Thank you very much.
All right, so first of all, I want to actually go through and thank people in advance. So first, if you are a sponsor or part of a sponsoring organization, please stand up. We would like to see you. Let us thank them heartily for making this possible. Next up, if you are a panelist, speaker, volunteer, what have you, if you're involved in producing this event, please stand up. Let us thank them as well. All right, so we're about to put this in gear and we're about to make this happen. You guys all have homework. This is day one. You should all have very thick packets, about, I don't know, 38 pages long or so. They're available at the front if you haven't found them already. What they are is a nugget of very important information distilled from 2.5 years of history from the Asylum, a little help from MakerWorks, and a couple other spaces. This is basically example income, example expenses, the cost of actually building out a space, what kind of insurance you actually need, and the insurance company you can buy it from, for one. But this is the basic information that is necessary for making these spaces, and it's going to talk in units that you may not be familiar with. It's members per square foot. It's, what was the other term? Dollars per square foot per year, right? It's all of these different kinds of numbers, these different kind of thinking that you need to get into that's a little bit above how much does this cost in rent per month. Right? It's not about that. It's you got to go one level higher and you got to start thinking a little bit higher than that. So I'd like you guys to skim it. Don't have to digest it, but try and skim it tonight. See what's in there. We start speaking tomorrow at 9 a.m. Doors open at 7 a.m. Is that right? 7:30. Doors open at 7:30. There will be coffee, and speaking starts at 9. So. I look forward to seeing you then. Before you go, if you are a speaker of any kind, please come up here before leaving, because I need to talk to you all. But otherwise, thank you all for coming so much. We will see you tomorrow. We have the van starting up in just a little bit. You have to go back through Tyler Street and out the front to get to it. Thank you all for coming.